The Ribbon Ridge Winegrowers Association. So you're the president. Are you still the president?
I am.
And I know that you were talking about being herbicide free and trying to move everybody toward
Yeah.
biodynamic farming.
hmm
How is that going?
So just a little point of clarification, not totally herbicide free, but chemical herbicide free.
Okay. Sorry.
And um, so organic or biodynamic
Okay.
are the terms, right? So
Right.
it's probably half the vineyards in Oregon, I'm just guessing now, are still farmed conventionally, right?
Right.
So they're using glyphosates and they're using systemic, chemicals. And there's good reason for that. You get higher yields and you have less labor costs and all those things. Some people think farming organic is less expensive, but really it's more expensive if you're a small vineyard because you're doing a lot more stuff by hand, and you're also so you're paying the labor costs, which have continued to rise every year. You have to deal with that, and then the products aren't as long lasting. Organic products are not as long lasting in the vineyard as the synthetic products, and
Right.
so you have to do things more often. So and they're expensive. So in the long run, it's more costly to do it that way, but it absolutely makes a better product. We don't do much intervention in the winery. I mean, we're literally none most of the time,
Right.
other than adding small amounts of sulfites to keep the wine, bacteria free. But other than that, we're just using the grapes. And so, farming to perfection by hand is what we do every year in order to get the best fruit that has, the right characteristics in terms of its, makeup, so that we can make good wine without a lot of intervention. And that's why estate wines are almost always the most valuable.
Of course. So are you giving any thought of trying to convert to biodynamic here on the estate?
I think about stuff like that all the time.
Right.
They're very similar in a lot of respects, organic to biodynamic. Biodynamic is an ancient method of farming that goes by the phases of the moon.
Right.
And it has, some weird incantations that you do in the vineyard, and it uses, cow shit or sheep.
Right.
Manure
There's
or whatever.
there's a bunch of recipes
You're
that you
gonna
can.
stuff your cow horns and bury them in the spring. So we don't do that. So I probably won't do that. But
Okay.
but we do if there's any. We test our plant tissues every year, and we test our soils every third year at a minimum.
Right.
And so if we see any nutrient deficiency or anything like that, I can get. I can go to Recology locally in McMinnville, and I can buy, composted, for, organic compost
Right.
for spreading in the vineyard or whatever. We really manage it pretty well with our cover crop. That's really pretty much all we need. And occasionally, every few years we lime the soil, to keep the pH where it should be, which helps the vine uptake the nutrients better. And if we see any like potassium is in nitrogen are the big ones, and if there's any deficiency in either of those, then we can make an application of that. I really don't need to do it very often.
That's great.
If at all.
Well, you've been farming here for like 20 years now.
20
So,
years, yeah.
that's,
Exactly 20 years this year.
when you think about it, 20 years, it's like,
Yeah.
where did that time go?
It's a couple decades, man.
I know. It's hard to, even for me, I've been here in Oregon for the last, now going on 21 years. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's a labor of love for sure. Every year, we get to January 1st and we're starting all over, and you have just a little bit of downtime, and then before we know it, it's going to be bud break again. We've been pruning since, I started on January 4th, and we just finished last week with everything.
Right.
So, it's not like we're not busy during the winter months either. We're doing all that. Plus I've got 140 barrels right now in the winery that I'm taking care of.
They're your little babies. You got to, tend to them and make sure they're all good.
And I'm bottling 3 wines next month, so I've got my spring bottling coming up, and those wines have to get finished off and
Fun.
get all their final adjustments and get them filtered and get them into the bottle.
That's
That's always an exciting time.
It is.
But it's nerve-wracking for the winemaker.